Hi, I'm Sandy Sims for SDS Digital with the Reflex LiveLoop. As per request, this tutorial video will cover using a clock to create slices in 3 ways. First, I'm going to use a rhythm to create a little sequence to work with, of course. Sorry about the crappy video quality, my good camera is on the fritz right now. And add a few more to make it interesting for slicing. The clock is coming from the Mod M1 sequencer shown to the left here. By the way, make sure the feedback control is turned all the way down for this or echoes will be recorded. There, that should do it. The clock from the modem is on the top 4 of this mult right now. It's always best to patch a clock by plugging into the receiver first, then the sender, or else the tip will short against the ground, causing a whole bunch of clocks to the other modules on the chain. You'll see me screw that up in a bit. So the clock must feed into the Reflex's record jack once it's switched over to clock. Now to program ClockDiv by holding Record TFG button. I'm going to set it at 2 clocks so there will be an echo every 2 clock pulses. And tap to save. Make sure the rate is centered unless you want a lower rate. Now hit the record button and 1 echo will be set based on the clock and continue recording. The blend can be wherever you prefer to hear now. Each echo will create a hidden slice, so leaving it going a bit longer is good. Now hit the record button to switch to infinite echo and validate those slices by playing one of them. This can be done via trigger as well. There's a slice being triggered by the clock. Notice what I just did. My bad. I add an LFO to the slice CV for randomness. The LFO should be running quickly or complex form. If the range is less than 5 volts, then the slice's offset can be used to shift the random sequence to include some of the slices not getting played, which is kind of nice. Yep, I monkeyed up the rhythm sequence by touching the clock tip to the ground. Plastic jacks solve this problem, but we don't like their fragility, so it's metal all the way. So, now this new sequence can be played along with the old, which may be the reason why this video was requested in the first place, I'm not sure. It's becoming evident now though. Interestingly, this new VCO sound can be dubbed into any triggered slice sequence by simply hitting the record button, so I'll cover that in a little bit. Aha, remembered to unplug the clock at the source this time, yay! So let's move on to the next method of creating clock slices. Ooh, this sequence is pretty boring on its own. Let's spice it up a hair. I'm not yet sure how others augment a handmade rhythm sequence, but this is the way I've always done it. So the second method will simply use the clock to toggle record to echo, then echo to play, and so on. Oh, almost did it again. Not enough sleep today, obviously. So the echoes are only 1 clock wide, but a slice is only created on the transition from play to record, so is actually 2 clocks wide as before. Add some variation. And the same clock will play the slices now. The reason it sounds this way is my taps are not always on the clock, as I like to swing and backbeat. They are there but don't get played as the clock is so short and the slice is only created on the change from play to record, which makes it even more interesting, I think. Now for some effects. Stutter is better with sharp edges, so I'll mix in the original sequence. Even though Stutter doesn't affect it directly. Notice the slice looping? One-shot slices could be made during an initial record or in RP mode. This record doesn't involve the clock at all, but slices will still be made with it. Simply start the record, then apply the pulses to the slice input. These slices will be the size of the clock spacing. Getting the right number of slices for random playing is really a non-issue, but I like to keep the repetition to a minimum. Record can be stopped as well because the slices were actually clocked in their already valid slices. And there's one ready to go. Now patch the same as the previous example using an LFO signal to select the slices. Make sure the LFO is around 20 Hz or more, or complex. This overlaying an original sequence with a randomly generated one is pretty appealing, I must say. Much thanks to the Reflex user that suggested to make this video. Now to do some playing around. Stutter course. No, it doesn't really go with this. Entering and exiting play effects will cancel stutter in the same way as the P mode button does. Play effects start end. Using another RTM sequencer to simply roll through a non-synchronized CV sequence to modify the reflex's rate seems like a good idea. Good old G move. Haha, nice. Here's the slice overdub I mentioned earlier. Any sequence slices via slice play input or even during an SGS or slice groove sequence can be overdubbed by simply starting the record. It starts from the beginning, so the first slices will be overwritten first. I hope you have enjoyed this little tutorial. I'm Sandy Sims. Thanks for watching, and keep on patching!